Good evening and welcome back to qualifying here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Apologies for the delay to the start. Unfortunately, we managed to get quite a bit of the way through before realizing that there was a lobby bug that would have precluded the drivers from advancing. It's obviously necessary for us to restart the qualifying session, as there would have been drivers that were crashing out, and it wouldn't have been fair for them to have lost out. For that reason, we're restarting. And first out on track, as was the case last time, is Jensen, the Tier 2 super sub today. I think we're keeping the conditions the same as they were in the previous iteration of the session, with some light rain only in 10 minutes time. So that could play into the conditions that drivers have to face, but we'll have to see as we just follow the Williams driver around. Obviously, we had a slew of retirements as well. So in terms of conditions, things aren't going to be any easier for our drivers here, and they're going to have to negotiate those. But they do get a second chance, as we just see the Williams, the back end stepping out just there. Very exciting circuit. You can get some excellent racing. And it seems today we do have 15 drivers, which is actually a lot more than we started the session out with. So in many ways, that delay has allowed us to thicken out the grid, and we can have a real battle. We can have a real battle for some points. Speaking of points, driver standings on the left-hand side of your screen there. As of the Jeddah Grand Prix last week, Kevin leads the way for McLaren, having overtaken Lewis in the Haas. Kevin and Deffy have proven to be an incredibly fast pairing, I think, on the grid. Definitely one of the strongest, I would say, of the season so far, and they're definitely shoo-ins. But I think the inter-team battle that we could see, as we just see the Williams around the corner for his first flying lap, the inter-team dynamic between them, I think, is also very strong. I think they are competitive with each other, but they're obviously very respectful of that. As we've had our first retirement from the session, and it is SJ, unfortunately. See if we can find out where that was. It looked like it was on the first corner there. No idea what caused it, but that is SJ's qualifying over, unfortunately, as we just see Snox emerge from the pits with Johannes in the Aston Martin, who set the first flying lap. It was a 1:59, was the previous benchmark that they set in the previous session. First flying lap for Johannes, who's also one of the first last time. Let's see how he can do compared to the first sector time set by Jensen. It is a purple first sector, which means that he was quicker. It was 34.858 versus a 32.973, so nearly 2 seconds ahead is Johannes, and that's that first sector only has one sharp corner and then Eau Rouge. So the difference between Tier 2 and Tier 1 really showing here. But nonetheless, Jensen is in the fight for some points today, because as we know, retirements are all but inevitable in this league. And as I say that, we've had that was a driver turned around. That was Chocolat, who retired early in the previous session in the AlphaTauri, has unfortunately retired now. We were on board with Millie just there, but Miku on board with them. Excellent in the wet conditions. Of course, their debut race and their debut win, which is the same race, was in changeable conditions around Hungary. I commentated that late last year. So don't count out Miku at all for a potential pole position. But things are looking very, very sketchy indeed in that Ferrari as they just round turns 8 and 9, but keeping it on the circuit within the white lines there. We're just going to have our first set of times come in, I believe, as you can just see on your map in the bottom right, the Aston Martin just approaching the finish line. We'll read that out as it appears, as there's a yellow flag at the end of at the start of sector 2, as Johannes goes 1.5 seconds quicker than their time set in the previous session and is on provisional pole at the moment. That was beaten by Kevin midway through the previous session, so we can expect some time there. Ignore the delta there that's come up in the bottom left corner, but Miku setting personal bests through their first flying lap has outcast another Tier 2 super sub today, going 4 seconds adrift, but Quickie again from Tier 2 showing their pace only 0.8 of a second off. TJ also in just 3 seconds off, but Lewis Jones in the Haas going onto provisional pole. Miku only managing to make the second row. So things still very, very close here. Just a second off was the Ferrari driver. Let's see, who else have we got? Are they on a flying lap? Defi is not on a flying lap, or if Defi was on a flying lap, Defi breached track limits. So it looks like it's going to be another. It's going to have to be another flying lap, especially as Defi was just 0.005 of a second off. So all to play for here, I think. That first sector, obviously, quickest set by Miku as Millie slots into 5th place of 7. Very, very exciting qualifying so far. Swixie goes onto the front row. There's a sensational 1 minute 58.0. Still 0.8 of a second off the time set by Lewis. Who can challenge him? I think of anyone on the grid at the moment, it's probably going to be Defi, or Kevin indeed, as Kevin goes nearly a second quicker than Lewis. So things heating up very much so here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, in spite of the terrible conditions, but Defi just wrestling to keep that thing on track. We know how much Defi loves to use the corners, but just misjudges the apex there. Brakes too quickly. Brakes too hard, but just uses absolutely all of that circuit as we head into the fast-moving turn 10. Let's see what he does here. Yep, just keeping it tidy, keeping it neat as Snox goes on to 10th place, nearly 7 seconds adrift. So I think we can safely assume that that's not going to be Snox's final lap. As Quickie goes into 6th place, really holding his own, is the Tier 2 current championship leader. But Defi, again, ignore that delta time. He's not 41 seconds off the pace, but he is a favourite for at least a front row start. So let's have a look and ride on board, see how Defi can negotiate these final couple of corners. I think that is Lewis just up ahead, probably re-entering the pits. So hopefully things should be, yep, I think, yeah, Lewis is nicely out of the way there. Defi rounding the final couple of corners. It looks like it's not even going to be close here. Bit of a slide coming out there. But as I say that, it is a front row start, and he is 0.6 adrift of his teammate. Very impressive lap from the McLarens there. It's currently a 1-2 front row lockout for the two McLaren drivers. Swixie on low fuel, it looks like. That's the reason for that yellow flag. But yeah, several drivers now out on outlaps. I think we've got, yeah, this is Rogue, who's just emerged from the pits for their first flying lap. Just behind Defi, who's just finished his first flying lap. Just reviewing the weather once again. Light rain in 5 minutes' time. Is that going to leave enough time for a potential switch to inters? I am not sure that is the case. But we'll have to see. Things could be very close, so stay tuned, I think, as Johannes emerges from the pits for his outlap before his second flying lap. I think the turnaround on this qualifying is going to be incredibly tight. If these drivers don't time it correctly, this could be their final flying lap. When you consider the time it takes to emerge from the pits, time to do an outlap, which is 2.5 minutes usually, or 2 minutes 15 or thereabouts. The time to do a lap, which at the moment is around 2 minutes, so that puts you to 4.5 minutes, and then another 2 minutes for an in lap. That is nearly 7 minutes. So I would say this could be a lot of drivers' last chances to get their flying laps done. So I think really where you're aiming to be, really when you want to emerge, is probably around the 5 or 4 minute mark. But we'll see nonetheless. Just following along with Rogue in the Williams. Who is on a flying lap at the moment? Is anyone on a flying lap? It doesn't look like anyone's on a flying lap at the moment. Swixie maybe? I think Swixie is actually. Let's have a look. Ah, Swixie having a spin there. Just staying clear. That was pretty gnarly. Johannes just on his outlap. I'm sure Johannes is going to be absolutely delighted with a second row start. So I think that's probably going to be his target today. Again, conditions are improving, so those wet tyres will get faster up to a point. Whether we're going to see inters in this session, I'm not too sure. But let's just ride on board for the along with the Aston Martin driver. That ERS is going to stay full pretty much over the entire lap, simply because drivers just aren't able to keep the foot down for long enough without risking traction as we go up through Eau Rouge, taking a decent amount of curb on the left-hand side twice over the double apex there, but keeping it tidy, using all of the ERS available. This is going to be one of the fastest sections of the circuit, reaching more than 200 miles an hour. Heavy braking zone into turn 5 and turn 6, into the chicane there. He's got clear traffic ahead of him, so he doesn't really need to worry about being held up. Next driver ahead, I believe, is Snox in the Mercedes, so he should reach him towards the end of Sector 2. Into turn 9, just easing it through, half on the throttle, then absolutely flat out, down to turn 10, where you're off the throttle, coasting for a bit, then back on to make sure you retain that traction going through towards the end of Sector 2 here. Turns 12 and 13, taking it nice and slowly, making sure that you're not breaching track limits on the exit at turn 13 there. Then turn 14, this is the most common place for people to lose track limits, and you can see it's right on the line there. It is, I believe, is that a purple sector? It says on the map it's a purple sector, but I don't think it is. But Rogue slotting into 4th place. We're now seeing a slew of inters now on the drivers. So I think Johannes may have mistimed this if inters turn out to be the right thing. But that's of no concern to him right now, because this is personal best territory for the Aston Martin driver. He goes very, very deep into turn 18, which compromises his exit on turn 19, but keeps it tight. He doesn't oversteer too much. Only using 40% of his ERS there over the course of the lap, and that is third position, the second row for the Aston Martin driver. I'm sure he's going to be absolutely delighted with that, all things considered, as there is a retirement, and it is Snox, who was just ahead, as I mentioned earlier before. He's not going to be able to improve from that 12th place position, as he didn't manage to set a representative lap time. But I think it's going to be incredibly interesting to ride on board with one of those drivers who is on the inters. Going through the final chicane there, let's follow on board with the man who's currently in P2 in the Drivers' Championship. Let's see if inters are worth it. If it's a personal best through here, I think this gamble will be absolutely worth it. But he's absolutely at the behest of those McLarens. I think the aim for Lewis at this point in time is definitely going to be, he's going to be aiming for probably a front row start. He absolutely has the pace. The top 4 are separated by under a second, and it looked absolutely rock solid through Eau Rouge there. And it is a purple sector set by the Haas driver there, nearly 3/10 up on the time set by Miku through the first sector. So one can assume that those intermediates are definitely doing wonders in a straight line. Let's see how they do around some of the tighter corners. Turn 8 here. Very, very tight corner, but keeping it tight. He doesn't look like he's struggling at all. Very, very controlled performance here from the Haas. Let's see what he can do. Keeping it absolutely very, very tidy. No track limits at all. A worry here for Jones. Going through turn 14. That is a personal best. Again, the delta for some reason doesn't seem to be working. But personal best for Lewis. I think this driver could be on course for a provisional pole position here. And as yet, no sign of the Aston Martins. Sorry, of the McLarens rather. As the Aston Martin dives into the pits. And Quickie goes onto pole position on the intermediate tyre. Let's see if Lewis can reply with his lap. Instantly he can, and it's not the same time. Momentarily it did seem like the same time, but that is half a second up on the time set by the Tier 2 Championship leader. I think Quickie's really showing his own here. That's a very, very impressive lap from the Alfa Romeo driver. No sign of the McLarens yet, so they're going to have to probably get out of there within the next minute. Got a series of drivers who are now out on their push laps. Let's see, Swixey. Let's see how he's doing. It's a purple first sector and a green second sector. Don't discount the Red Bulls. I think Swixey and Ski Block both also a very, very strong but understated pairing, I would say. And it is onto the front row for Swixey, who is only 2 tenths behind the time set by Lewis, as we now see the McLarens beginning to emerge from the pits in pairs, very ominously looking to give each other the benefit here as the intermediate tyre becomes the predominant tyre of the grid. That is a series of braking boards that have been absolutely evaporated by Outcast in the Alfa Romeo. Not sure for what reason that was, but maybe he just lost confidence there. But we've got 1 minute 40 left of the session, so we can presumably see a slew of drivers going to be beginning their final push laps. I wonder if Outcast is among them. 1.5 minutes left. As Jensen goes up into 7th place on the intermediate tyre. Very impressive from the Tier 2 driver. That is probably where he's probably going to be very happy with that, to have managed to have gotten his way through the session setting semi-competitive times. But we're watching Outcast here, who's just tagging along behind Quickie, but he is beginning to struggle on those wet tyres. You can definitely see that the tyre situation has definitely changed in favour of the intermediates. That's Defi going slow there. I'm not sure for what reason. They are causing yellow flags by doing this. I wonder if there's no damage to these cars here. But I would say at this point in time, favourite for pole could well be Kevin, who we're watching here, as Swixey goes on to provisional pole position. I was not expecting that at all, and I think he's going to be absolutely over the moon with that. Jones has emerged from the pits, and is he on a flying lap? He is on a flying lap at the moment. It's a personal best from Jones, so he is going to be able to respond. It's going to be incredibly close. I think the first of the drivers, as Millie goes onto the second row with a just half a second off the pace set by Swixey. Checkered flag is now out. Our drivers in McLaren have crossed the line. Next driver to cross the line is going to be Quickie on the intermediate compound tyre. I don't believe Quickie pitted. So that means he will have been carrying a high fuel load. As you can see, that's a purple first sector and a green second sector. So all is to play for the Tier 2 current championship leader. Let's see what he can do as we round the final couple of corners. Turn 19. Can he keep it tidy? No oversteer through there, keeping it very, very neat. Quickie onto provisional pole, 0.7 of a second ahead of Swixey, who set the previous benchmark time. No improvement from the driver behind, who I believe was a Williams. Let's see who else is there. That is Miku, who is just about to cross the line and goes no better than before, it looks like. I think that was a track limits thing. So unfortunately, that's Miku's qualifying over. As Lewis goes on to provisional pole, increases that gap to 0.7 of a second. So we've got another couple of drivers yet to cross the line, notably Kevin and his McLaren teammate Defi just behind him. They work in pairs, these two, and when they go hunting, they often catch their prey. As Rogue goes onto the second row with a 153.1, as Swixey supplants him with a 1 and series of times coming in now is Johannes, who we haven't seen for quite a while, going onto the second row, pushing Rogue down, back down to the third row. Kevin now rounding the final corner, series of personal bests. He will improve, but how well will he improve? It's only the front row, but Defi goes onto pole position. That was an incredibly exciting qualifying session, and I believe that is everyone crossing the line. Let's see as we just watch TJ go around the final corner. Will TJ improve? TJ will not improve. That was unfortunately a pretty slow lap. That was an incredibly exciting qualifying session. Join us in just a moment while we review the results, and we'll be back soon. Yep, and indeed, it is Defi on pole position for the Belgian Grand Prix, followed by Lewis, just 1/10 of a second separating them, and then another 600ths of a second to Kevin. Quickie in his Tier 1 debut for Alfa Romeo, same team he drives for in Tier 2, onto the second row, so very, very impressive stuff from the Alfa Romeo driver. Johannes into P5 on the third row, followed by Swixey from Husky Snack, who I believe is Rogue. Millie in 8th place. TJ, Tier 2 driver, in 9th place. Jensen in P10. Ferrari in Miku P11. Outcast P12. Snox, Chocolade, and SJ unfortunately DNFing there. And welcome back, and while we just wait for the drivers to load up, let's just review the weather forecast, which hasn't yet loaded up because we're still waiting for players. Just stand by for a moment while we get that going. As I guess it's lights out and away we go, as Defi leads, as there's a series of drivers going off there. I'm not sure for what reason that is, or if we're retiring, but we didn't get much warning there about the race start there, I'm afraid. As Defi leads from Quickie, who's managed to make up a couple of places. Swixey way down, as is Jones. Series of drivers have sort of left and rejoined the session, but Defi is leading from Quickie, from Kevin, from Johannes, from Rogue, from Swixey, from Jones, who's lost a lot of positions there. He's down 5 places, Quickie up 2. So expect a very, very competitive fight as he fights his way back up. That is Miku just rejoining, started in P11, is currently in P11. Chocolade making up several places there. I'm not sure for what reason that is, but up 4 places, as is Snox, who started towards the back. A lot of drama happening. I think there's a series of drivers stopped there. I'm not sure what happened there. Is there damage to that car? That is TJ going relatively slowly because of a lack of front wing. But things very, very close here. Let's see what Quickie is doing. Quickie, of course, much more used to racing him myself, being a Tier 2 driver, but holding his own, it seems, going through here, as we've had our first retirement and a virtual safety car, and that is a Williams of Rogue, who, as you can just see, has just retired. I think just lost it there in the conditions. We are in full wet conditions, but the weather forecast does look like it's going to be lightening up in the next 15 minutes or so, which does mean that we're going to get some mixed conditions. There is a virtual safety car, not a full safety car, meaning that drivers probably won't get the opportunity to pit and gain too much time. But yeah, things very, very exciting at the end of the first lap. But we've had our first drive-through penalty, and I'm afraid it's for Johannes, who picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car, leading to that is an effective 30-second time penalty. Now, they don't tend to give these out in real F1 anymore for whatever reason, but this is going to absolutely ruin Johannes's race because you're not able to take them during safety car periods in yellow flag. So that is going to leave him off towards the back of the grid. And we're just going to have to see how that impacts his race. But we're at the end of... we're at the start of the second lap, and we've got nearly 3 wide at the end of the straight there. But Millie making a very, very classy move up into 4th place, making 2 positions up in one go. And that's up into 4th place, albeit 3 seconds behind the podium positions for Millie. I'm not sure Johannes is going to let that one slide, but Johannes has other things to worry about. We're getting possible race strategies indicating wets for the entire race, but I actually think we're going to probably see some inters within the next 20 minutes time. So keep an eye out for that as the lap times begin to tumble. We've had a second retirement. Now that is going to be a full safety car, I'm afraid. That's Chocolat going very, very slowly, passing the wreckage of the other Williams. I think Williams is going to be incredibly... I think they're going to be despairing and their wallet's going to be hurting ever since we introduced the new mechanic for crash cost. So I think the Williams drivers aren't going to be too happy with that, as both of those drivers are now out of this race. It's not true, my controller didn't disconnect there. As Defi now leads, but that lead is going to get... It's going to get erased as the safety car now comes out. These wet tyres are pretty durable, so I don't think we would expect... I'm not sure we would expect... Well, having said that, we are seeing Defi pit. For what, I'm not sure. Maybe even the intermediate tyres. Let's just ride on board as Outcast gets a 3-second time penalty for... track limits. We haven't had that much green flag running, so I'm not sure how that's happened, but it's a new set of wet tyres for Defi. I guess the wet tyres will be better, but that is an absolute textbook double stack there for McLaren, who emerged from the pits as they started, with Quickie also opting to pit there. Are there going to be any drivers separating? That is the question. Nope. Defi, Quickie and Kevin are stayed together, but Quickie is on the intermediate compound tyre. I don't know if those conditions are yet ready for intermediates, but if they are by the time we get started again, that's going to be a major benefit to the Alfa Romeo driver. But Millie inherits the race lead as Jensen leaves the session due to the retirement. Millie now inheriting the race lead for Ferrari. Swixey up into 2nd place. Series of positions lost. Snox up 10 positions. I think a lot of those are also on merit as well, given that only a couple of drivers have pitted. Let's have a look. I believe Snox was around 7th or 8th place before the safety car was called, so that would be pretty impressive. TJ having left the session now, I'm not sure why TJ hasn't retired, so there may be an internet issue there. They'll have until the end of the safety car period to be able to solve that. As we just see the Alpines of SJ and TJ just catching up towards the back of the field as the field now begins to narrow. I wonder if we're going to get the safety car called in. I don't think we are. I think the safety car will go around for another lap, which is going to be news to the ears of Millie, because it does mean that there's going to be less time for the other drivers to catch up. That said, there are nearly 20 laps left of this race. By the time we go racing again, there will be probably at least 18 laps, meaning that there's a long way to go. Tyre strategies are going to change. Those wet tyres are probably not going to last, and given that Defi and Kevin are both onto new wet tyres, they will have a slight pace advantage. We only got about a lap and a half of regular green flag running, so it's going to be very difficult, I think, for the drivers ahead, as we just see a series of drivers. Seeing a couple of drivers in the pits. This is Miku going into the pits, presumably for another set of wet tyres. I don't think this is going to prolong the safety car period. It's a very long lap around here in Spa-Francorchamps. So chances are it's probably going to be safety car in at the end of this lap. But we shall wait and see. Because usually the way the game mechanic tends to work is that and it is the intermediate tyres actually for Miku there. And Johannes, for whatever reason, going onto the medium tyres. I can't say I buy that one, but I think we can appreciate Johannes's ingenuity for what it is. And if it works out for him, it could be marvelous. But I'm not sure that is the case. But Mika going very, very slowly there as they catch up towards the back of the pack on the intermediate compound tyre. We've got diverging tyre strategies, I think. We're going to start to see as we see light rain in 10 minutes time, overcast in 30 minutes time. I don't think we're going to get as far as overcast, I'm afraid. But things are going to change very rapidly as we come off that wet compound tyre. Net lead currently goes to Defi. That said, there is no mandatory pit stops in a wet race, so net lead actually goes to Millie. But one would assume Defi has the fastest pace on account of those new wet compound tyres. But still, all to play for. Very treacherous conditions on a very hard track. Not least Eau Rouge, so we can expect probably drivers to be attempting overtakes from the word go. The pack is together, and I would expect at turn 14 we're going to see the safety car called in. Let's just ride on board with Defi, the man who is on pole, now in 4th place as a result of that. As a result of that pit stop that he made. Is the safety car going to be called in? Let's have a look. We're past the end of the 2nd sector, so I would imagine it's going to be called in fairly soon, and if not, I can see why it's not being called in. It's not being called in because there is an AlphaTauri driver adrift. I'm unsure as to why TJ... I think TJ may well have been lapped here, which is why it's showing TJ as being inside the pack, but not there. So it looks like we're going to get another lap under safety car conditions. In the meantime, as Defi goes into Defi and Kevin both opt to go into the pit, this is going to be an interesting one. I think they're going to get held. I think Kevin's going to get held up as well, unfortunately, as the McLaren driver is now opting to go for the intermediate compound tyres. I think both of them seeing now that the faster compound by the time we get going, or not long after, will end up being the intermediate compound tyres. We've got a rainbow colour of teams opting to go into the pit as Kevin just loses out of position there to Lewis, as well as Outcast. Quickie remaining on the intermediate compound tyres, now into 4th place. So very interesting. I'm not sure what that was there. That was a very slow moving Alpine. That Alpine looks stopped even, but that Alpine does not have a front wing anymore. Not sure what's going on with I'm not quite sure what's going on there with TJ. But hopefully we're going to get going at the end of this lap. We've got the top 3 runners, Millie, Swixey and Snox, all running the wet compound tyres. Series of drivers still sliding. I'm not sure if that was intentional by Snox. But yeah, drivers are going to have full ERS as well available to them on account of the slow-moving safety car. By the time we get going, assuming we get going at the end of this lap, we will have 17 laps of racing left, which is, quite a bit more than the amount that we had before our yellow flag conditions. We had a virtual safety car on lap 1, and due to the retirement of Rogue, and then a safety car on lap 2, and we've been on the safety car ever since. But as we approach turn 14, turn 15, I expect we're going to get a call for a safety car in at the end of this lap. Do we? I hope so. I'm not sure why the safety car is not being called in. Whoa, very, very close there by Millie. I think it's just getting a bit antsy behind the safety car. I'm not sure why the safety car hasn't come in, but we're going to wait until the end of this lap. We may have to go for a restart with a reduced lap count on the current grid. Or I think that will be probably negotiated at great length in the chat. But we'll have to see as the drivers just make their way through turn 5 through the chicane. Just stand by while we get going again. And I think, is that damage carried by, no, that is not carried, that doesn't look like damage carried by the, by Millie. I'm not sure. I'm just reading the chat at the moment, seeing if there's, anything I'm missing. But, around this final couple of corners, let's have a look, see if the safety car is going to be called in at the end of this lap. Nothing yet. I think it might be bugged. But stand by, we may get a restart. Looks like we're going to get a restart, I'm afraid. You know, once again, a reminder that this game is supposed to be finished. I don't know what EA thinks they're doing by releasing a game that's half finished and only giving it 8 months of support and then releasing the next game. I think most people in the F1 community would much rather pay $120 for a game that got 5 years of support rather than $80 for a game that got 1 year of support. And I understand the whole they need to make money kind of issue, but this is the kind of problem that we end up getting, and it does actually waste a lot of people's time when we get indefinite safety cars, because this is a problem we've dealt with throughout the entire year. It's actually a rare thing when the game works, when the game works without issue. I think that's incredibly telling about the quality of the game that they're making, especially considering there's so much potential in this game. But stand by. This is my own personal opinion here. But stand by while we get the game restarted. And that was a planned retirement in protest at the bugs that we're getting. Stand by while we get the game restarted. And apologies again to the viewers that we haven't been able to run the race as smoothly as we'd like, but this is totally out of our control. Thank you for your patience, and we'll see you soon. Right, I'm very sorry to announce that, unfortunately, due to the glitches that we're having this week, we're unable to race this week in Spa. But please do join us next week while we rerun this race around Spa. Hopefully it won't be as bugged. If it is, we'll, I guess, cancel the race, but we'll have to have a look. If you want more information, you can join the Discord that should be in the description for this channel. We're on YouTube now, so I'm not entirely sure where you'd be able to see that, but you should be able to find more details there if you are more interested in applying or watching or just getting involved in the community. Thank you very much for joining us this weekend. Sorry again that we couldn't run the race as normal, and we'll see you again next week.